for my September mid-month wrap-up. I didn't do a mid-month wrap-up last month, but I already read 7 books this month, which I feel like I haven't been reading much this month. However, there's still 7 books on here, so apparently I did. I don't know how this happened really, so yeah, normally when we get to the halfway point of the month, if I've read 5 books, I decide to do mid-month wrap-up, and I read 7, so here is 1. And basically I do mid-month wrap-up, so my end of the month wrap-ups aren't too long. So yeah, even though I think I might come to regret that at the end of the month, because school is starting on the 21st, starting college on the 21st, and I don't know how much time I'm gonna have for reading, so who knows. I also just want to say that I got a script subscription at the beginning of the month, so there's mostly ebooks because I get excited about things. Let's begin. Let's stop talking and begin. The first book I finished this month so far is Loveless by Alice Oseman, which I ended up giving 5 out of 5 stars. This book follows a girl who, like, the book starts at like the after party of her prom, and she is just kind of lost because she has never had a crush, and she's never kissed anyone, never had been in a relationship, and all this stuff, and everyone around her has, and she's just kind of like, I want that, you know, because she's a big fan of like rom-coms, and she reads a lot of fan fiction, so like she feels like she's an expert in romance in theory, but like in real life it hasn't come to translate well. And then she starts college and starts to try and force herself to, 1, make more friends, and 2, also finally get into a relationship. And as she encounters more and more people, and also more queer people, she learns the terms asexual and aromantic, and just starts thinking about if those terms could fit her, and if so, what that means for her and her future. That's and in the meantime, there's also kind of like a B-plot with the main character and her friends doing like a Shakespeare club kind of, and they have to put on a production with like 5 people, and has to be well, otherwise the club will die, and like stuff like that. That's a minor plot point. I love this because I think it just, I can't talk about the ace rap or the arrow rap. I do think those discussions were done in a respectful way, and in a way that kind of in my mind made sense the way things developed. And also just at the end, her being like, I have accepted it, but I also like have to still like learn how to live with it, you know what I mean? And I really appreciated that, because I feel like a lot of queer novels, it's just like, I came out, so therefore I'm fine. Okay, quick update from editing me here. Basically what I was trying to say here is that a lot of queer books that deal with like the coming to terms with sexuality, or like coming out, like those topics, I feel like after the initial struggle of coming out, everything like seems fine, while this book still shows other problems and insecurities you can have around your sexual identity even after coming out, and like accepting yourself and stuff like that. So I just really enjoyed reading from that perspective, as I felt like that was a bit more realistic than the everything's fine that we usually get. And then another thing I really enjoyed in this book were the friendships. I feel like this book mainly had a focus on friendships, which I really enjoyed. Thus, of course, also have a focus on romance in a way, but I really appreciated the fact that this really built friendship first. The more my characters started learning about these identities and how they fit her, the more she started realizing how valuable friendships are. And I just so appreciate that. To have just be like, hey, might not be in a romantic relationship, but you know what's better? My friends. And I really appreciated that. Again, it is, especially because still in YA we often see the friends disappear once a romance gets introduced, so I appreciated the friends being the main dynamic in this book and being the main like relationships. At a certain point she talks about in the book, like, I'm full of love, like look at all these friends I have. Like, I might not be in a romantic relationship, but I am filled with love because of all these amazing friends that I have. And I just, my heart exploded because, oh my god, I love that so much. If you want to know like my thoughts of real-time reading with this book and any of the other books I want to talk about today, I did start doing reading vlogs at the end of last month. So for every single book I'm going to talk about here today, I have talked about in a reading vlog before. So go check those out. Then the next book that I finished is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, which is the 2nd book in the Ember series. This was a reread that I ended up giving 5 out of 5 stars. because this world is divided in like a couple of different like races of people. I guess it's not the right term, but you have like the main two that take place, especially in the first book, are the marshals and the scholars, and the marshals like overtook this place from the scholars and like oppressed essayists and people. But Leia is a scholar, and her house gets raided by the masks, who are these kind of like super soldier type people under the marshals, and they wear a mask, which is why they're called the masks. But yeah, the house gets raided because her brother is being suspected of spying on the marshals, the masks in particular, and you know, that's not legal, so they raid the house, kill her grandparents, and take her brother. And Leia manages to escape and goes to the rebels, and it's like, hey, I need your help freeing my brother because it's your fault that he's in prison. So they agree to that, only in return she has to go spy on the school for the masks and, you know, give them information that they need. And then we follow Elias, who is a mask in training. He is about to graduate at the school, but he wants to run away. He doesn't like being a marshal and the martial regime and everything. He doesn't like it. But the problem is, right at his graduation, these trials get announced to pick the new emperor, because the current emperor is without an heir, and especially and apparently to the prophecies, his time has come, and they need to find a new emperor. And Elias's name gets brought into the trials, and he has to compete, and he is very conflicted on what to do next. The two of them interact, a lot happens. This is book 2, and mainly on the one in this one, and yeah, I just had a great time with this book. I feel like a lot of reveals are made in this book, and originally when I read this, I didn't pick up on any of those things. I was like, oh my god. But now, having read the first book and this one again over the past 2 months, I'm like, oh, I did see like very small hints towards it, and I appreciated that. Like those little puzzle pieces that like make sense the second time around, but the first time you just completely gloss over it. And just like the first book, I felt like every word in this felt purposeful, and everything that we learned about it has a purpose. It isn't just to like expand on the world or something. No, it comes back into the plot, and I really appreciate that. Like everything feels so cohesive and nothing feels pointless. Maybe in this book we did a lot of character development, and I really appreciated that as well. I really feel like this book mainly was just like expanding on the characters and really developing them, while also just having an engaging plot. And yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about this book, because I can't really say too much without spoiling anything. But yeah, I really love this series, so if you haven't checked it out yet, go do so. The last book is coming out in December, and brilliant. The next book that I read is The Deep by River Solomon, and it's based on a song by the Clippings, I believe. And oh my god, I still need to listen to that song. Okay, I gave it 5 stars. It is basically, how to explain this? We follow kind of like we follow like mermaids in a way, but these mermaids were created by pregnant women that were thrown off board, or like jumped off board during like the slave trade. Like those babies being born turned into mermaids, and they have this whole mermaid species. And basically in this mermaid species they have one person who holds like all the memories of their people, and the rest lives in ignorance and bliss, as they say. And we follow our main character, who is that person that needs to keep all the memories, but she doesn't like doing so. She doesn't really feel like herself anymore, and she feels very weak and like she can do it. So she's trying to find a way to get rid of it. And basically this whole book, there is like a small plot to it, but I feel like most of the book is about our main character just kind of learning who she is and how that fits into her role into the community. And I really appreciate it. I give it 4 stars, like I said before, because I did have some problems with it. I feel like a lot of, like, we'd had a couple of perspective jumps or like time jumps, and it took me a while to realize that was going on, or like what was going on in particular. Just like find my footing in those places. It was very confusing at times, so I would have appreciated if that was done a little bit better. But I do still recommend it because I think this is a very interesting concept, and I really like what was on with it. Like I said, it mainly explores our main character and like her person, her being, I guess, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it brings on a lot of great discussions, and eventually it is very short, so yeah, go check it out. But I'm also still mad at myself that I haven't listened to this song yet, so I have to do that. Remind me of that. Yell at me to do that, please. And then the next book that I read is Weeper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir, which is the third book in the Ember series, and this one was a first time read. Gave 5 out of 5 stars. I don't have to say synopsis because I just gave a synopsis for the second book. It's the same. This was so good. Oh my god. I am actually glad I put this off for so long, because I don't think that if I read this when this originally came out, I would have been able to wait for the last book. Now I can wait because it's only a couple of months, but when this came out, like, I think 2 years, like a year ago, over a year ago. I don't remember when it came out. Yeah, this came out in 2018. I couldn't have waited 2 years, you know? I love this. I think this took our story in such a great direction that I wasn't expecting at all. But oh my god, like, it made sense. Like I said, it's not something that came out of the blue. I think like everything like makes sense if it happens, but like you don't see it coming, like I explained earlier. So good. And oh my god, there was a lot of character development, and I also really enjoyed this. A lot of characters went different directions than I expected to, and it was so high stakes, and so I can't talk about this book because my mind is still blown every single time I think of it, because it's so good. Like, there were some things, like big reveals, that the gist of it I saw coming, but the way they were executed was just so much bigger than I was expecting. It was so high stakes, and so and I felt stressed for these characters. Like, oh my god, I wish this could be spoilery so I could discuss like every single word that happens in this book, but brilliance. Then immediately after that, I read A Thief Among the Trees, an Ember graphic novel by Sabaa Tahir, Nicole, Andelfinger, and Sonia, Liao. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's a graphic novel set in Ember world, and it takes place during Elias's and Eileen's 5th year, and it follows kind of like a mission they go on, and I really enjoyed this. This isn't like the brilliance that I have with the books, but it is fun. This was mainly like a fun adventure. It did have some hard-hitting moments, so I also appreciated that, the kind of like the balance between the two. And also like I said, this takes place in Elias's and Eileen's 5th year, so that's a little bit removed from when the first book starts. But I liked, so they were very different from how they started in the first book, but you could very well see how they got to where they were, you know what I mean? You could see the hints there of who they were going to become in the future, and I also really appreciate it. And then the next book I read is Disfigured, on fairy tales, disability, and making space by Amanda Leduc, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This is a non-fiction book about disabilities in fairy tales, and it's like the representation, and also is about the author's own experiences with a disability. And I read this upon recommendation of Books and Lola. She's talked about this in her past couple of videos. I would still recommend this, even though I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I still recommend this because I do think it brings up a lot of interesting discussion points and important discussion points. But I feel like often when we talk about representation, we don't, or like diversity in books or every TV shows, movies, anything. I feel like when it comes to like mental health issues or disabilities, those topics aren't discussed often. When we talk about diversity, when we talk about skin color and sexuality. So yeah, I feel like more people should also start to educate themselves on disabilities and like mental health issues, and have those and how those are represented over the years. Also really important, you know? So I appreciate the book for what it did on that front, but I still gave it 2 out of 5 stars because I kind of had a lot of problems with the writing. It just didn't really click with me. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place, and sometimes it's like hard to like really understand what exactly the author was talking about in a certain chapter, because it would just jump from one point to another in a way that didn't really make a lot of sense. Then for the rest, I also felt like the author went off topic a couple of times, so I was like, okay, why was this necessary? Didn't really add anything to what she was talking about. And yeah, also just a lot of repetitiveness that made stuff boring, and yeah, I don't know, it was just things in the writing that I didn't like. Let's immediately move on to the last book I need to talk about, and get ready because I hated this one, and that's Pretty Funny for a Girl by Elliott, which I give 1 out of 5 stars. It's a galley got from that galley. I don't like saying that, but yeah, I always feel bad when I got like a galley and I don't like it, but I'm not gonna lie, you know? This book is about a girl who wants to be a comedian but is kind of insecure about going on stage and stuff, and then one day at school there's like this talent show, and this boy performs a comedy act, and our main character completely falls in love with him, which is ridiculous. And basically he recruits her to write his comedy sets, basically. And there's a little bit more to it, but that's the basic plot premise. And it was terrible. It wasn't even funny, which I mainly wanted to read this because I thought it was going to be funny. No. Honestly, most of the jokes just sounded better than funny, which... And then just the main character was so awful. Was just such an awful person, and the narrative just pretended it was gay. I don't have a problem with unlikable main characters. I love unlikable main characters, but that's if the narrative makes it obvious that the character is meant to be unlikable. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to make it obvious, but like, you know when you read a book where the main character is supposed to be unlikable. Yeah, that wasn't the case in this one. She was supposed to be likable, but she was one of the worst protagonists I've ever read because she, it's so infuriating. Two of her main characteristics that this book really wanted us to know was that she was fat but didn't care about it, and she was a feminist. Both of those were wrong. One, she was fat, that's correct. Or at least, well, at a certain point, like, the guy keeps saying, no, you're not fat, you're just curvy. Which is already kind of, I don't know how to feel about that. Secondly, the only thing our main character thinks about in her inner monologue is how fat she is and how she must be ugly and no one must like her because of it. And this guy, the only two things she talks about in her inner monologue. So you can't tell me that she doesn't care when basically all she does is fueled by her insecurities about her looks. That doesn't make sense. Secondly, she also keeps saying, I'm a feminist. I don't do that because I'm a feminist. Are you sure about that? Because all you do in this book is when you encounter a girl, it just completely bash her for everything she does. Like, she has two female best friends who are girly and like to wear makeup and dress up. It's just what they like doing. And because our main character doesn't like that, those girls must just be doing it. They get attention from boys, and that's the only reason, and therefore they don't have value. And that's to her best friends. So imagine how she thinks about girls that, she isn't close with. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I hated everything in this book. And don't read it. That's all I have to say about it. I'm gonna cut this off because I could rant about this book forever. I'm sorry for that. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you read any of these books, what you thought of them, as well as some of the books you read in this month so far. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good. Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?